members of our community and our law enforcement have become adjusted to injustice. Our democracy requires us to be the people that it needs in order for this to move forward. I agree with Keisha. Our laws in Canada say that, yep, you have freedom of speech unless it infringes on the rights of others. The other thing that needs to be like very much clarified is that this was a community discussion. It was the equivalent of a picnic. We've done this before where we have a very peaceful gathering. We bring water bottles, we bring granola bars, we bring suntan lotion, bug spray. It's supposed to be a family-friendly event. Between the times that these threats have been made and these people showing up, nothing was done to curb that violent rhetoric or the threats. And it's startling to people to see these people scream at you that you're starting a riot when you were really just there for a picnic community discussion. I was supposed to be one of the speakers that day. And I just want to speak to what this actually is, because I think it shows a lack of knowledge or education in these law enforcement offices and precincts. This is a tactic used by white supremacist groups that's gone back to the 1980s. It is called accelerationism. When they see institutions begin to crumble, like something from this pandemic, what inevitably happens is that they want to push that violence forward. Their belief system is that if we accelerate this into violence against innocent people, white people will have no option except to join us in this race war. That is their rhetoric. That is not our rhetoric. Our rhetoric from the very beginning has been about bridging that gap in the conversation, which is why we go to these rural communities to do that. I was horrified by what I saw that day. I thought I was in America, not Canada. You know, full disclosure, my grandparents fought in World War II. And when I see those symbols on this land, all I can think of is how my grandfather would probably consider these people traitors to Canada, because he risked his life to keep those symbols from these shores. I also feel as if, you know, when we have children present, I have seen at Sylvan Lake, these hate groups taking videos of children as a means of tracking down their parents on social media, using facial recognition to track people down. I've seen them stalking us outside of the communities, following us on their bikes. There was a period of time where I had to leave the province for a month and a half because of these hateful threats and fear for my safety. And I'm somebody that's in the background. And so if I'm someone in the background and I have to leave Alberta for safety, that tells you that these concerns are not being taken seriously. And, you know, I would have to say that in the statement made today about there being both sides, when one side is an anti-racist community group, by default, the other side is a racist group. And these groups are known criminals, domestic terrorists. Some of them already have restraining orders against them that were not taken into consideration as to the violent patterns of their behavior. It has gotten to the point now where we were going to have a talk on Sunday that we now have to do online. We've heard of other areas where they are having anti-racism discussions in universities, in neighborhoods that are now being targeted by these groups, because they have become so diluted by misinformation that they think anything to do with anti-racism is Antifa. And this has created a situation for us where our lives are on the line, and all we want to do is have community discussions that are peaceful. And I've actually seen how law enforcement not enabling this behavior can actually produce a good and positive day. When we were in Lacombe, members of these groups showed up, but they were removed. And because they were removed, it was allowed to carry on, and it was a beautiful day. You know, the kids were safe. And this is pretty much one group. You must remember, these groups rarely, if ever, hold their own protests with their own permits. They in fact stalk our protests, or not even protests, our discussions, in order to express their free speech. Now, if they were to do their own protest we would not show up. Why is it that these groups are now being permitted to stalk events online? That, in a nutshell, is what the issue is, because they're talking about it as though it was a joint protest, a joint area. It is not. I rarely see these groups doing their own protests. Usually they'll do a rally after to terrify the people that are there, like what happened in Innisfail. After the Innisfail event, they had a rally after, and you could hear them screaming in neighborhoods around. But none of our people showed up to that protest, because that's not what we need in order to support this cause. This cause is not about antagonizing another side. This cause is about giving people the space and the safety they require in order to educate their communities on what their lived experiences are. So I find it very troubling that these people are being perceived as counter-protesters when they are hate organizations who are not formally organized in terms of public free speech, and who are only protesting when they've located events that we ourselves have already booked months prior. That shows premeditation, in my opinion. At our Didsbury event, one of these individuals showed up in a MAGA shirt, waiting for me to enter my car to see which car I was entering into, for 45 minutes in the parking lot, until he left after 5 people stayed behind to ensure that I was safe. And I have to go off of what Keisha just said. These people are not patriots. They are, you know, my opinion is, if you want to go make America great again, go, but over there. Because I'm busy here trying to make Canada a country where everybody gets an opportunity to speak their piece in a peaceful setting. And the amount of violence that when we walked in there, it had already begun. We ended up having to go around to every family that was there and privately whispering to them, you must leave in 10 minutes, because we didn't want them to know that we were leaving, because they ended up following. So even we were being stalked after this community discussion was canceled. We are basically running for our lives. And when I hear ambiguous statements about both sides, we can disagree, in what capacity is terrorizing, domestic terrorism, a protected side? That is not the country that we propose to be. And when we have individuals in our organizations who are being doxxed, their lives are being threatened, they are being stalked out of these communities. I myself have been chased out by bikers numerous times, trying to return home. It is escalating to a point where and we've spoken about this, all of us, Cheryl, Keisha, Calum, Taylor, we have all spoken about our fears that we are now in a situation where we have to determine whether we are allowed to do our basic civil rights of peaceful assembly, or live, or be alive. And no Canadian citizen should ever be put in that situation, especially when people are getting their misinformation from American media sources. They say that we're definitely Antifa. Well, I'm looking for my check in the mailbox, and it has not arrived, because I'm not Antifa. I'm a concerned citizen. And as somebody whose family has served to protect the rights of this country, I am disgusted and offended that those rights are currently being taken away from me because I am a person of color. I'm wondering to myself why my parents just didn't move to Kentucky. Might as well have, because I'm seeing the same stuff in Alberta. And it's horrifying. It's horrifying. It's disturbing. And that's why, like, how I feel about it is, it shouldn't have to take media to make the RCMP press charges. But I'm glad the media stepped in and did exceptional journalism in which to ensure that justice was served. As I said, we are becoming adjusted to injustice. We need to stop this before somebody is killed.